In this video, we're going to solve quadratic equations by doing something called factoring. A quadratic equation is a polynomial equation of a second degree. It looks like the following: ax squared plus bx plus c. X is the unknown variable, and a, b, and c are numerical coefficients. So you might have something like this: 2x squared plus 4x minus 6. There are a lot of steps to solving quadratic equations by factoring. So let's go through a few of these together. Let's factor x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. The first step is to take the first coefficient times the last term. There's no coefficient on the x squared, so we can put a 1. So we're taking 1 times a positive 12. We're going to write that off to the side. 1 times 12 is 12. The next step is to write all the factors, meaning what can you multiply to get to 12? The factors are 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, and then we also have the negative values, because a negative times a negative is positive. So negative 1 times negative 12, negative 2 times negative 6, and negative 3 times negative 4. After you find all the factors, then you're going to add them. 1 plus 12 is 13, 2 plus 6 is 8, 3 plus 4 is 7, negative 1 and negative 12 is negative 13, negative 2 and negative 6 is negative 8, and negative 3 and negative 4 is negative 7. Our goal is to split up this negative 8x. So we want two factors whose sum is negative 8. If you notice, our negative 2 and negative 6 sum was negative 8. So we're going to use these two factors. We're going to create two binomials. The first term drops, and the last term drops. Then, like I said, we're going to split up this negative 8x. Negative 2x and negative 6x combine to make negative 8x. The next step is to factor each one of those binomials. What can you divide out of both terms? It can be a number or a variable. Since we have an x squared and a minus 2x, there's no number that we can factor out, but we can factor out an x. Taking out an x from x squared leaves us with 1x, and then taking the x away from negative 2x leaves us with negative 2. Now let's look at the second binomial. The first thing is that you never want a leading negative number, so we know we're going to divide out a negative. Now looking at the 6 and the 12, you can divide a 6 from both. So we're going to actually divide out a negative 6 from both terms. That leaves us with x, and then 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. What do you notice about what we just got? If you notice that what we have in parentheses matches, you're correct. If you get to this point and they don't match, you've done something wrong. Now that we have them factored, we're going to take the outside numbers and make them one set of parentheses, and then we're going to take what we had in the other parentheses and go ahead and write that down. We have this equal to 0. We're trying to find what values of x can we plug in to get 0. So we're going to take each one of these and set it equal to 0, and then solve. So we can add 6 to both sides. That leaves us with x equals 6. And then we can add 2 to both sides. That leaves us with x equals 2. So the two values that you can plug in for x to get a value of 0 is 6 and 2. And we have now factored this quadratic equation. Let's go through another one together. The first step is to take 3 times negative 2. That gets us negative 6. Now we're going to list the factors out that get us negative 6. The factors are 1 times negative 6, 2 times negative 3, negative 1 times 6, and negative 2 times 3. There aren't any other factors, so now we can find the sums. 1 plus negative 6 is negative 5, 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1, negative 1 plus 6 is 5, and negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Our goal is to get the middle coefficient, so we want the 1. Negative 2 and 3 get us that positive 1. Now we're going to create two binomials. The first term drops, and the last term drops. And we're going to split up this positive 1x by a minus 2x and a positive 3x. Now that we've created our binomials, we need to factor them. This first one does not have a number that comes out, but we can divide out an x. That leaves us with 3x minus 2. This second one does not have anything that we can factor out, but we have to factor out something. So we can factor out a 1. By dividing out a 1, we're left with a 3x minus 2. After factoring, these match, which is what we want. Now we can take the outside terms and put them together, and the matching binomial, and we have one final step, to set them equal to 0. To solve for x, we need to subtract 1 from both sides, leaving us with x equals negative 1. On this one, we have to add 2, leaving us with 3x equals 2, and then divide by 3. So x equals 2/3. So our two solutions are x equals negative 1 and x equals 2/3.